Hey, so I recently did a video where again, I'm sorry, failed at my handling of the software. I'm using OBS here on my computer to record videos, and I forgot to tap the right button. So you guys could hear me talking, but you couldn't really see what I was talking about. So hopefully I'll do it better this time. This is going to be my retelling of game 5 of my Spanish Championships. Now, at this point, the Spanish Championships was over. I had come 6th. I was in the final against Russell, and he beat me. My first loss with my Brits for years at that point. In a tournament game, I hadn't lost since WTC at Cork. I think was the last time I lost a game with the Brits. So it was, what was that, 3 years of only winning with my Brits. Came to a sudden halt. And I was number 1 going into the final game, but losing that one meant that I went straight out of the top placements. So I came 6th. But the day after, because the day after I was actually staying at Aquiles' place. Very nice. Thank you so much for having me there. It was a real joy just spending the weekend with Aquiles and his wife, and I mean it was really cool. But of course we had a lot of time Sundays, so we had enough time for a game. So I played against Aquiles, who had at that point just won the Spanish Championships. And this is the game that I played against him. So we were playing double envelopment. He had his finish list, which had he had 18 order dice. He had 3 8-man continuation war regulars with double Fausts. He had a single unit of Sissy veterans. He had a T-28, I think it was. It was one of those with a lot of extra like turrets and stuff, one of those tanks, and a howitzer. He had a flamer team, a sniper team, a mortar team, and an anti-tank rifle. A heavy ball force cannon, and 4 Komsomolets, which I felt was like, this list was weird. Only Achilles could run something like this and win the Spanish Championships. It's a weird list. It's not what I would normally recommend people do if they're going to go competitive Finns at all. And I was, of course, running my absolutely overpowered, super tuned Gurkha list with 5 Gurkhas up and Adams, Stewart, LVT, 3 early war motorcycles, land mattress, medium mortar, and flamer in a jeep. We were playing double envelopment. Now, the plan here was always going to be for me to see if I could spread Achilles out and then push 80% of my army against 50-60% of his army, overwhelm one flank. Playing kill points first to ensure that the win, and then see if I could push something down into his sector and maybe out of his deployment zone. So this was the table we got. This table was very typical Spanish in many regards. It was more open than I would have liked it. I got the wrong side, so Achilles won the roll-off for picking sides, and he picked the one that's furthest from the picture here, which had all the line of sight blocking. It had 2 houses. It had a courtyard with a very tall wall. It had the bridge and 2 fields, whereas I got 1 house and a wall and a field. So I was not happy about the choice of sides, but for me this meant that I was already at that point, I knew which side I wanted to push, which meant that I had to encourage Achilles to deploy at least his tank and some of his other units on the other side. So I wanted to push my right flank, because that was where all the cover was. That was where I potentially could get my units up where his heavy autocannon couldn't shoot me, depending on where he deployed. But I had some areas that I could work behind, like some line of sight blockings I could work behind. Whereas my left side was completely open. I did not want to go there at all. So I had to encourage him to deploy on his right, my left. I absolutely stuck to the plan. The first thing I put down was my multi-launcher, which I put in behind the walls on my right side, and then that meant that Achilles was deploying most of his howitzer tank and his heavy autocannon both went to my left side. I was very, very happy about this. I also intentionally made sure to stick all my small teams behind line of sight blocking cover, so his sniper couldn't get to them, and so I could work around, like figuring out where I could go without the sniper actually shooting at me, which was brilliant. I also lured Achilles into placing more units on his right by placing one unit of Gurkhas on my left flank, my very extreme left flank. That was one of the first units I pushed down. That meant that he felt like, okay, I can maybe shoot this to bits. As soon as I got the first order dice, I ran them towards the bridge here. You can see that right here. They're up against the bridge. And I spent the rest of the game going on ambush and going down with them until they died from fire by the tank and the infantry here. And you can see my push on my right flank here. The LVT has come on from reserve, sent everything up along the flank. At this point, I have my steward out here on the very far flank, which was brilliant because Achilles forgot about the steward, and he forgot that I could turn it and drive into this center again. So he thought that he could just throw a couple of Panzerfaust and maybe a flamethrower up against the steward, and I would be dead. And I wasn't, because I just moved the steward away and he was stuck there, not being able to move. So I think my plan really, really worked. One other thing that worked was I had behind this house here, if you can see my cursor, behind this house I had my medium mortar. As soon as he had placed his sniper, which he did in this house, I knew that this side wasn't going to be good. But I really didn't want that anyway, so I moved the medium mortar out where I would still be in hard cover, but I could have one guy just visible, see his heavy autocannon. And I started shooting, and turn 2, I rolled the 6, hit it, killed it in one go. That was brilliant. Sorry about that 6, Achilles, but yeah. I would have killed it in a couple of turns anyway, but because he couldn't really shoot at me. He had nothing going back the other way. You can also see that everything indirect went to this, like to delaying that side here. This yellow point is where my artillery bombardment landed. Unfortunately, I didn't kill anything, but I gave a few pins to all these units, and he delayed for so long that in the end, he couldn't actually push his units out of my zone. He could just about managed to maybe get into my deployment zone, maybe, but at that point, of course, his flank had completely collapsed under the weight of just Gurkhas assaulting. So this is how the assaults ended up. Achilles did try to push my right flank, which is exactly what I wanted him to do. He did kill that one Gurkha unit in the end, but he wasted more than 50% of his army over here, whereas 80% of my army just pushed straight into his zone here and killed everything in front of me. The weirdest thing happened, though, with his BA-10 armored car, which actually managed to immobilize my LVT right on the back line here. I had moved up, failed an order test, moved back, and then he shot me and immobilized me. And then the BA-10 and my steward shot at each other for several turns, not like at point blank range. We were hitting every single turn, and it was in the flank and in the rear, and we couldn't manage to damage. Every time we rolled for damage, it was a 1, so crew stun, nothing happened. Finally, though, my BA-20 got rid of its pins, shot him in the side with my light Polston autocannon, and killed his BA-10. At that point, his flank here had collapsed. He had tried to move up. I had assaulted his continuation war squad. I had assaulted his flamer. Everything was dead. The center was also collapsing. His BA-10 was the last thing holding that. and my Gurkhas was in here, down, ready to go and assault his mortar, which was located here. His counter push with a couple of consomelettes and a continuation Wolf's rifle squad also got assaulted, also got killed, and my small teams just started moving up as well. So at that point, and that was turn 4, he really had very little to do at the end of turn 4 and conceded the game. So what decided the game? For me, Up and Adam really did mean that I could keep moving even though I was pinned, because Aquiles quite often got the first dice and could pin me because he had more order dice in the bag than I did. He had 18, I had 16, right? I also think my plan was much better than his. He spread out quite a lot, which meant that he couldn't really support his forces. His individual units couldn't really support each other. Whereas I focused all my forces. I could support everything. Everything was like, my Gurkhas was supported by Darka, and that meant that he had to go down, which meant that I could charge. All of that really worked in concert. My mortar got lucky, killed his Bofors in one go. It didn't do anything for the rest of the game, and it was dedicated to killing that Bofors, so it didn't really matter in the end. My forward artillery observer pinned his tank, but not massively so. So it wasn't really my indirect fire that won me the game. My land mattress didn't shoot a single time during all game, because his sniper was shooting at me until he killed me. Both of us was firing blanks all game, but that doesn't matter when you're charging, right? Aquiles, I think, made a mistake splitting up his forces, and he forgot about my steward, and those two things really was decisive in many respects. He pushed into the center of the board, which could have been good, but he really didn't support his forces, and as such, I just ran right through him. So I think he made mistakes in this game, and I think my plan was pretty much flawless, which, of course, decided the game. Yeah, so that, I think, was a nice way for me to end my going to Spain. I, of course, have been unhappy about not winning when I was, like, in the finals. I was top table the final turn. I was number 1, but I lost it all to Russell. But this was a pretty good comeback for me. So yeah, Gurkhas, man, they're just so good in double envelopment. So good. Aquiles was like, yeah, but Up and Adam just keeps you going. Yeah, and it does, but it wasn't that which won me the game. It was his spreading out and my focusing on one part. Napoleon was right. Focus your forces. You will win battles. Right. That was it from me. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.